Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We have a little bit of a full house tonight. That's good. It's always encouraging to see people attend their government meetings, citizens at work, holding your elected people accountable. And we welcome you to the chamber tonight. Because it is as full as it is, I would ask that able-bodied men please stand and offer your seats to others, perhaps women and children who might like a chair. And don't make me come around and enforce that. So I do see some ladies that could be seated. You know, Save the Women and Children starts right here at Peoria County. Having asked that question and having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask everyone to please rise for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everyone.
Roll call. Sixteen present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to, after we approve the minutes, use the chairman's prerogative to move the agenda around a little bit, and I want to bring the consent agenda forward before the proclamations so that we could do ratification of a new member tonight before the proclamations and the rest of the meeting begins. So,
Approval of minutes.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Fennell on the second. Thank you. Oh, yeah, did I not call it? Please vote. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Mr. Robinson. Sixteen ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you. Do these new buttons require any additional education for anyone?
Just 3 buttons now. No confirm button. Next consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Rosenbaum on the second. Mr. Mayor.
Per your request, Mr. Chairman, could we remove all the appointments related to Jennifer Allison to vote on separately?
Thank you. Any other items? Okay, so we'll deal with first things first. Can we vote then? Do we have a second on that?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenbaum second,
Yes.
so we need to vote to pull that off. Fair enough. So everything except those items related to the appointment tonight, Ms. Allison. Dr. Adamson, I saw your hand.
Yeah, C7. I'd like to pull C7.
Would you like to pull C7? Okay, got it. Anyone else? Okay, so we would be at, say it again, Alan.
It's consent for everything except C7 and appointments concerning Miss Allison.
Are we clear as mud? All right, please vote.
Sixteen ayes, 0 nays.
Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to move for the approval for all the appointments related to Jennifer Allison.
We're going to take that as one item.
One item.
One item. So, y'all, that's on the front page of your appointments. Miss Allison, welcome. Mr. Fennell has the second. Welcome. I see you in the back there, so somewhere soon we're going to invite you up. How many years did Tommy O'Neill serve? 26. He sent me a text a little while ago, and he wished you the best. I don't know where he is, but I don't think he's in Illinois right now. And I know since turkey season opened, it could have something to do with that. So we have a motion on the floor to ratify the appointment of Jennifer Allison as a member of this body, in addition to her being appointed as the vice chairperson of the County Operations Committee, a member of the Budget Committee, a member of the County Health Committee, a member of the Executive Committee, and a member of the Ways and Means Committee. Does anybody want to throw a little more at her? Because we got her where we want her right now. Okay. Any discussion? I want to thank Mr. Dillon and Mr. Fennell for the interview process. I also want to thank the applicants, too, that made themselves available for public service. It's a little unique. I was telling Miss Allison's family that the surest way to avoid an election is to see elected people not serve their full term, and then we have these mechanisms in place by which we replace them. And to replace a member of this board, and this is for the edification of the public that doesn't get to see this every day, one of the privileges of the chairperson is to place a name before the members to ratify. So I don't get to do this by myself. It requires the consent of 10 wise men or women. I hope we see 18 tonight. And that's the check and balance, is that the rest of the elected body has to elect the member whose name I present. And we, for several years, have used the vetting process that has a bipartisan interview committee. Bipartisan because that's the way I want it. But it also is a requirement of the appointment process that the party of the member who retired or vacated the seat must be ascribed also to the nominee to be ratified. So it's just one of the unique things. So I'll quit with a history lesson. If there are no comments, please vote. And this would be on the ratifying the appointment of Jennifer Allison to the Peoria County Board, 17th District.
16 ayes, 0 nays.
We don't get much in here unanimous, so welcome. To my colleagues, thank you. It's a blessing to get all 16 of you tonight. Jennifer, we'd like to invite you and your family forward. I think we have a big-time clerk guy here. Whoever's doing the photos and stuff, you can come up here in the semicircle, but we got to swear you in, and this is a fun part. Y'all join
Like to sit
Mom.
by your desk or up front here, wherever you like. Did you have somebody taking a photo? I'm sure somebody can fill in. Well, Alan's always got a camera.
Steve, is this the first time
Be
you've done
careful
this?
with Alan, he's always got a camera here. Well, congratulations, Jennifer, in your appointment to the Peoria County Board.
Well, thank you.
I'll give you a copy of this if you'd like to follow with me, but it's pretty short, so. But are you prepared to take the oath of office and be seated?
I am.
Okay, great. If you just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and then state your name,
I, Jennifer Groves Allison,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully support the Constitution of the United States
that I will faithfully support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that you will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of a member of the Peoria County Board,
of a member of the Peoria County Board,
County of Peoria, State of Illinois,
County of Peoria, State of Illinois,
to the best of your ability.
to the best of my ability.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
If I could get you to sign right here, you're all set.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Who's this one?
This is Daniela.
Hi, Daniela. And you?
I'm Don.
Hi, Don.
How we doing?
McKinley Allison.
McKinley Allison. Join your mom up here while she gives us a few comments. Congratulations.
And thank you all for your support. I sure appreciate it, and I'm excited to join the board. I have been involved with county government on the Board of Health for the past 6 years. Sorry, standing with my back here. And so I'm excited to also be on the health committee to further that in some ways and not lose touch with those issues, but also expand horizons here with you folks. As a pretty much lifelong resident of the area, we were gone for maybe 5-ish years or so, and of course came back, but we love Peoria and are raising our kids here and excited to be a part of helping you guys continue to see Peoria grow.
We're really excited. Thank you. And I think I get to say you can take your seat. Matt can tell you what to do tonight. If you get a little nervous, just ask him. Okay? He's really a veteran, too. All right? All right. Congratulations. That's a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to my colleagues. Mr. Clerk,
Be at item C7.
C7. Can I get a motion to approve C7? Thank you, Mr. Rosenbaum. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Adamson.
My question was mainly about accountancy, about the spend on the automobiles. It's going to the general fund spending. Was it in the general fund? So where was it in the budget that's getting transferred to the general fund? And then it's just the nature of the purpose, or the nature of the purchase. Is this most appropriate in the general fund? Just so
Right.
to understand.
So the line items that are listed are in the general county department of the general fund, and program 301 is public safety. This is the program for where we budget for and purchase public safety related vehicles on an annual basis. So that's the source of the funds, and the vehicles being purchased are for public safety related departments. So it is the appropriate place to pay for those from.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Elsasser.
Would it be appropriate if I asked to be more specific as far as police cars or?
Sure. Go ahead.
So, thank you, Mr. Elsasser. The vehicles to be purchased here are in two departments. First department is probation, and the second department is a rolling stock replacement of one of the vehicles for one of the assistant coroners.
Okay, that's not the new pickup truck, is it?
No, it is not.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, please vote.
18 ayes, 0 nays. Next, a proclamation recognizing May 5th through the 11th, 2019 as National Correctional Officers Recognition Week, and a proclamation recognizing May 12th through the 18th, 2019 as National Police Week.
I'd like to welcome Mr. Paul Rosenbaum, the chairman of the Public Safety Committee. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. And Rhonda, will you come up, please? The week of May 5th through the 11th, 2019, has been designated as National Correctional Officers Recognition Week, and whereas the adult inmate population in Illinois was 39,915 as of December 31st, 2018, down from 41,427 inmates on December 31st, 2017, and whereas on December 31st, 2016, year end, and most 65% people held in jail were not convicted of an offense but were awaiting a court action on a current charge. The remaining 35% were sentenced offenders or convicted offenders awaiting sentencing. Nearly 7 in 10 inmates were held in jail on felony charges, while 1 in 4 were held for misdemeanor offenses, and whereas jails employ 226,300 full-time staff at year-end in 2016, an increase from 213,000 at year-end 2015. Nearly 80% of jail employees were correctional officers, deputies, monitors, and other custody staff who spent more than half their time with the incarcerated population. In 2016, the inmate to correctional officer ratio was 4-1, and whereas the rated capacity of jail to hold inmates continued to increase, reaching 915,400 beds at year-end 2016. An estimated 17% of all jail jurisdictions were operating at or above 100% of their rated capacity in 2016, and now therefore I, Andrew A. Rand, Chairman of the Peoria County Board, on behalf of the County Board, do hereby acknowledge the week of May 5th through 11th, 2019 as National Correctional Officers Recognition Week, and urges all citizens and institutions to observe the week of May 5th through 11th, 2019 in Peoria County through observance of National Correctional Officers Recognition Week. Dated this 11th day of April, AD 2019. Signed by Andrew A. Rand and R. Steve Sonamaker. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to say anything, Ron?
On behalf of the correctional staff of the Peoria County Sheriff's Department, to you, Mr. Chairman, Sheriff Asbell, to Assistant Correctional Superintendent, Carmisha Turner, Chief Gay, thank you for all of your support, and continue to look forward to great things that are going on at the Sheriff's Department. Without all of you and our volunteers, we would not be able to do the things that we're doing. So again, thank you for this recognition, and continue to pray for us as we continue to do great things for Peoria County.
So again, thank you. Sharon?
Thank you.
Okay.
We're switching.
Okay.
Brian, did you just come in from the lakes or something? Welcome, Sheriff.
Thank you, sir. Sheriff Asbell, we got another proclamation for you tonight. By act of Congress and presidential proclamation, May 15th of each year is designated National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which it falls is National Police Week. The 7-day period is set aside to recognize the contributions to society of all our nation's police officers, and to dedicate May 15th to graveside services and other memorials for the police officers who have been killed in the line of duty. Whereas, since the first known line of duty death in 1791, more than 21,000 U.S. law enforcement officers have made the ultimate sacrifice. Currently, there are 21,541 names engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, and whereas 144 law enforcement officers were killed in the line of duty in 2018, a 12% increase from 2017. Of those fallen officers, 134 of them were male and 10 were female. Whereas during the past 10 years, more incidents resulting in fatalities accused on Friday than any other day of the week. The fewest number of incidents occurred on Tuesday, and whereas the Peoria County Sheriff's Office will hold an annual Honors Board Memorial Ceremony on May 14th, 2019, beginning at noon in front of the Peoria County Sheriff's Office. The awards luncheon will begin immediately afterwards in the gym at the jail, and now therefore I, Andrew A. Rand, Chairman of the Peoria County Board, on behalf of the County Board, do hereby acknowledge the week of May 12th through the 18th as National Police Week, and urge all the citizens, institutions, public and private, to support police services through the observance of National Police Week. Dated this 11th day of April, AD 2019, signed Andrew A. Rand and R.C. Sonamaker.
Thank you, Paul. Congratulations, Sheriff.
It's a lot of people in here. There's a lot going on tonight, so just really quick. Thank you. Thanks for everyone for their continued support, especially all the board members and Mr. Chairman. It is a partnership, and just want to reiterate that on May 14th, we have a kind of change up this year how we are doing the banquet. It is midday, but it's an opportunity for us to pay homage to those that gave their life for this department. Not many people have to go to work every day, walk by a monument with your friends' names on it. So if you have an opportunity, please come out and be with us that day. We're going to give out awards as well. So it's a bittersweet day, but we do it every year. So once again, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Rosenbaum. Even for the veteran members here, and I certainly speak to the new members, I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to visit the sheriff and his team at the office of the Peoria County Sheriff's Department, you should. And if the sheriff has time, you should see if he's willing to discuss with you philosophically whether law enforcement is an expense or an investment, because I think there's a real opportunity to maybe change that paradigm in how and why we're spending dollars in the Sheriff's Department. And his team are all veteran people, but there's just a paradigm developing in that gang that I'm tickled about, and it's just worth going and having some conversation. It's not just about being in a jail anymore, and I think we have learned that incarcerating people does very little to achieve results given what the published recidivism rates look like. And there's a team of people out here who are on the cusp of doing some great things. And I invite you on their behalf to go out there and do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Next, a proclamation recognizing Maloof Realty on their 50th anniversary
And
as
this
a
ought to
Peoria
be-
County business.
This is real fun. Mr. Elsesser, I don't know how you stole this from me since you don't even live in the city, but bring them up. Come on. Holy cow, when I saw this today, my first question was who, and then I got to meet this little young man tonight, and Michael, of course, is...
You come out here and stand by.
I don't know I can stand by a man that great. I'm happy to.
So we welcome to the Peoria County Board tonight Michael Maloof, who's the CEO at Maloof Realty, and Ethan Maloof, who's waiting in the wings to become CEO someday. So is that right? Okay, good. I said that right. But Maloof Realty is a lot more than selling real estate. It goes all the way back to Mayor Maloof, Mayor Jim Maloof, who served for 3 terms, and he was a advocate and a salesman and a cheerleader for Peoria. And I know Michael's the same way. And Michael and I actually have an agreement that we're not leaving the state of Illinois no matter how bad it gets. We're staying here, isn't that right? And we're optimistic that we're going to help turn these things around. And so not only was your father the mayor and the CEO of the company, but he was also the reason why we have the St. Jude affiliate in Peoria. And boy, that really puts Peoria on the map and provides so much health care for young people who need it so desperately. during those tough times in their life. And so it's just a tremendous honor for me and the Chairman Rand to have you here tonight to present this proclamation. Whereas Peoria County wishes to recognize Mayor Maloof Realty on its 50th anniversary, and whereas Jim Maloof started Maloof Realty on February 2nd, 1969, and his son Michael Maloof took over the company in 2003, and whereas one of Maloof's realty's keys to longevity is building relationships based on trust, resulting in a branch network of 240 employees in 13 offices in 5 counties, and whereas Maloof Realty received an award for integrity in advertising from the Better Business Bureau, and whereas Maloof Realty is an advocate for buying local, Mary Ardapple would like that, and whereas the staff at Maloof Realty devotes their energy to their families, providing outstanding service and keeping Peoria a great place to live, and whereas Jim Maloof, Michael Maloof, and the entire Maloof Realty organization are actively engaged in St. Jude, where their years of commitment were honored when St. Jude named the Peoria affiliate after Jim and his wife Trudy, and whereas Peoria County recognizes Mayor Maloof's commitment to the local community, including Jim Maloof's service to the city of Peoria as a 3-time mayor. Now, therefore, I, Andrew A. Rand, Chairman of the Peoria County Board, on behalf of the County Board, do hereby recognize and congratulate Maloof Realty on its 50th anniversary as a staple in the Peoria community, dated this 11th day of April, 2009.
You know, my dad, his grandfather, was called the cheerleading mayor. He loved this community, and that passes down to all the 250 people that work with us and all the 3,000 transactions in which we are involved every year. The Maloof people love Peoria. Thank you very much. Great to be here.
I would add, Michael, he was also called the singing mayor, and most folks wished he didn't, because once he got going, he was going and going and going. So I remember that too. And I want you to know, I like to talk to Mike in January because he can tell you some stuff about how the year in real estate in Peoria County ended and trend lines and stuff. And if you want a real education in how people view us as policymakers or our community as a place in terms of livability or cost, you need to just spend some time with Michael because he knows it. He doesn't wing it. He's got data, and it's a remarkable thing. And the Peoria County Realtors Association, I think, as an organization, is some group to pay heed to because they're listening and they're paying attention to what we do as governments as well. And I admire that so much about you. And you know, when I make that call, it's like I just want to know the EAV's going the right way, you know.
It is. Okay. It is going the right way, I assure you all.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Bye, Ethan.
Next, a proclamation recognizing April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and promoting the effort of the 12th annual Hands Around the Courtyard event.
Kate? Is Pam Perillas in? Hi, Pam. Welcome. I didn't see you. Welcome.
Whereas child abuse is a community problem and finding solutions depends on the involvement of people throughout the community, and whereas child abuse and neglect can cause traumatic psychological, emotional, and physical harm, which can lead to poor outcomes, including detrimental behaviors and mental and physical illnesses for children and adults. And whereas most cases of child abuse are never reported and children suffer in silence waiting for someone to save them. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because partnerships created among families, social service agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. And whereas parents, families, and communities can help reduce child abuse and neglect by promoting the benefits of children receive from loving, supporting, and encouraging homes. And whereas the Youth Services Network Panel, in a partnership with Peoria County Government, is hosting the 12th annual Hands Around the Courthouse event on April 26, 2019, to raise awareness of child abuse prevention. And whereas, in partnership together, we can eradicate the 1,072 child abuse and neglect cases currently pending in Peoria County. Now, therefore, I, Andrew Rand, Chairman of the Peoria County Board, on behalf of the Peoria County Board, do hereby recognize April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2019, dated on this 11th day of April 2019. Signed, Andrew Rand, Peoria County Board Chairman, and Steve Sonamaker, Peoria County Clerk. Thank you.
Chairman Rand and County Board members, on behalf of the Youth Service Network panel, once again, we so appreciate your support in this partnership in letting the community know what need there is and that there are over 1,000 pending abuse and neglect cases. So we hope to see you all at noon on Friday, April 26th, right out here in the by the fountain, and you'll get to hear Chief Judge Gilfillan and Judge Brown and Jerry Brady talk about child abuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it.
Next, citizens' remarks.
All right, welcome everyone. Some of you have attended our chambers before. Some of you have not. I recognize the names and don't recognize some names on the request to speak. By rule, we permit 30 minutes per meeting for citizens' remarks. Generally, we like to make equal the amount of time each speaker has. So based on the number of citizens requesting to meet tonight, we're going to have to move the 5 minutes down to 2 minutes 30 seconds. And that then means I have to time you, or somebody will help me time you. So when I ask you to consider wrapping it up, that means you're real close. I don't mind you going over a little bit, but please heed that. And then I would like then to advise the first speaker tonight, Byron Jose. Got it right, didn't I, Byron? I got it right, didn't I, Byron? I said Jose. It's spelled J-O-O-S. Appreciate you correcting me before.
I would like to share a concern about Peoria County's recent $300,000 giveaway to an autonomous vehicle company in Tazewell County. I understand how we like to be optimistic about this type of deal, but for anyone who would think this would be a grand slam, I got 3 words of caution: Hotel Pure Marquette.
Thank you. You saved us some time, Byron. Appreciate it. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to a cluster of comments that will be related to a resolution we have coming out of Ways tonight regarding the Livestock Management Facilities Act, and I will begin with Mr. Dave Sutherland. Welcome, Dave. There you go, sir.
I'm just a minor politician, so I won't take very long. My name is Dave Sutherland. I'm a trustee and board member and mayor pro tem of Princeville, Illinois, and have served on that village board, as Brian knows, for many years. In fact, 32 years I've been on the board and mayor pro tem. I'm also, as you probably know, a veteran of the United States Army, which I'm very proud of. Princeville is an idyllic little town. It's a fantastic school system. Our school system is known, that's what brings people to our town, is that school system, in which many people choose to live in a small town. It is reflective of rural America that is fast disappearing. I have lived in Princeville and I've raised my whole family there for 50 years. If this hog farm is allowed, our way of life will change, and not for the better. No matter what the hog industry says, there's going to be some problems. There is no evidence that this hog farm could also, there is some evidence this hog farm could also threaten our water supply, which is vital. Each of you must ask yourself, sitting here tonight, how would you like to live next door within a mile from a hog farm that could affect your community, your growth, your water supply, and like I say, your whole way of life? So I'd like to convince the board to vote in our favor in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ruth Coates. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Ruthie Coates. I was born and raised in Princeville, Illinois. I actually currently own a business there in the community. My dad farmed in Princeville and just passed away last year. During his last weeks, nothing cheered Dad up more than stories about growing up on the farm in Dunlap. He would also be visited with other farmers with current farm news. One night in Dad's last days, a group of Dad's farm friends visited him. Dad told them that he was going to fool the doctors and plant corn this spring. Dad told them that he was going to run a tractor again, just like he always did out at Kraft Fertilizer with the Spoon River Valley Farms. Dad's friends played along with it and told him which new tractor he'd be driving, and all of my brothers and sisters, the same as my parents, we've inherited our parents' deep-rooted love of agriculture, and that's why I'm speaking to you today. All of my life, farmers have lived with a stereotype that is not flattering, but farmers are intelligent, progressive, innovative people raising families in a true quality way of life. But something has changed. Social media from outside interests have invaded our community. Many farmers who have stayed the course and earned a living in agriculture are now given the label factory farms and are publicly shamed for progressive growth and adapting to modern technology to remain viable in today's world. Our livelihoods and the future of our family farms are being threatened with urban sprawl. I have a question for all of you. Can any of you tell me how big an acre is? An acre is 43,560 square feet, and to put that into perspective, an acre is 75% of a football field. My next question is, do you on the board have a paper and pen? Because I think that you should write these down and realize when you vote that you should take these into consideration. These statistics come from the Census of Agriculture. Between 1950 and 2012, Illinois lost 4.04 million acres of farmland. That's 13% in 62 years. Nationally, between 1950 and 2012, we lost 244 million acres. That's 21% of agriculture acres in 62 years.
Ruth, we're already over time, so you'll need to wrap it up.
In closing, I'd like to ask you to not impose any resolutions. They are not needed. Agriculture will continue doing everything in their power to utilize advances in technology and science to be a good neighbor. Your zoning, as stated last week, is already backlogged. There's no budget for these changes, and there's already a history of compliance. It's time to realize that layering of government and imposing more rules on top of a current structure that is already in place and working is not needed. Please do not further handcuff agriculture.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I'd like to invite Cheryl Walsh. Take your time, ma'am. It's okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks. My name is Cheryl Walsh. I am a resident of Princeville. I grew up in Peoria County, and I actually have lived in the Princeville School District all of my life, and I am the fourth generation to do that. I'm sure a few weeks ago you guys had no idea what the terms LMFA or AFO or CAFO even were. So I would like to tell you guys thank you for educating yourselves and finding out what those terms were. As producers, we already have a lot of regulations that are in place every day to do our jobs. We do not need any more. People think that when you add more regulations that it will help or protect the family farm. Well, I am the family farm. And adding more of those regulations actually costs us a lot more money. In the last 3 years, producers, we have lost 52% of our income. Would you guys still go to work every day knowing that you made 52% less than you did 3 years ago? Probably not. You would probably change careers or change jobs. You would not still be where you are. As producers, especially livestock producers, you are born to do this and you do this. It's because it's what you love. You don't do it for the money. Mr. Dillon, thank you. Thank you for educating yourself and seeing what a true farm is. As producers, we do appreciate that. And the rest of the board and anybody else, if you have any questions, call the Farm Bureau office. Patrick and the staff there, they will guide you to the right person to answer your questions that you have. If people that are not members of Peoria County, we will find the answers for you. The actual answers, not answers you find on Google.
Thank you very much. Matt Price. Welcome, Matt.
I'm Matt Price. I've lived in Princeville for the last 35 years. I was at the Ways and Means Committee meeting a couple weeks ago. Mr. Rosenbaum asked I thought was a very pertinent question, and that was, have any of us, and by us I'm assuming he means those of us who are opposed to the facility going south of Princeville, have we ever stood up and spoken in favor of any of these facilities going in? And the short answer to that is no, we have not. But this is the first one we've ever opposed as well. The facility that went in north of Peoria County, according to the ag laws, went in, and the only people that were notified were those within half a mile, half a setback mile. Most of us around Princeville did not even know it was going in. So it's difficult to vote in favor or opposed to facilities that you don't know any information about. Every industry has their own rules that they have to follow, their own standards. They also have to go through county zoning and the Peoria County Board when they go into the county. In 1996, the LMFA excluded the confined animal feeding operations from this process. The resolution that you are going to pass or that you're going to vote on, all that does is doesn't add more regulation. It brings back the local governing board into the decision-making process into where these facilities go. The resolution's not asking any more from the agriculture industry than it's asking from any other industry. Right now you have no say as to the siting of these facilities. And since you have no say and your rights were taken away from you in 1996 by the LMFA, my rights as a citizen were also taken away to have a venue to express my concerns. And tonight, with the resolution, I was hoping that we would get some of those rights back. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Pam Price. Welcome.
Yes, I'm Pam Price, and as he stated, we've been here 35 years. I brought with me tonight, there are signatures that I sent down to Department of Ag. There are 309 signatures here. I have another 39 out there, and there's additional petitions coming in, signatures on our petition. I'll read it to you. If I get my glasses on. Our petition stated, we, the undersigned, ask that the permission to construct a CAFO within the 1.5 mile boundary of the village of Princeville be rejected, as it is too close to the village boundary and will have a serious negative impact to our community. We further request careful review of the laws which have led us to the situation where a CAFO is being considered. So people came to sign our petition. We had 158 from Princeville. We had people from Chillicothe, Hannah City, Dunlap, Brimfield, Edwards, Peoria, Peoria Heights. We had people from Elmwood, Mapleton, Bartonville. So a lot of people came to us. We advertised in a local, the Weekly Post. We advertised 2 different weeks there, and we put it on Facebook to just merely say, come and sign our petition if you're concerned about this. People got in their cars and they came and they signed. We sat at our library and they came and they signed with us. We had one couple that went to a birthday party and 39 people signed. We had another couple that went to a church event and they signed. But the vast majority got in their cars and came to us to sign. They're trying to tell you something. And that something is we'd like to be heard. Bar none, people told us when we sit and listen to them, they said they felt like we have no voice. Aren't we in the U.S.? Shouldn't we have the right to be heard, right to discourse? We feel like that's been taken away from us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Tom Weber. Welcome, sir.
My name is Tom Weber. I'm born and raised in Illinois. I spent the first half of my life in Stark County and the second half of my life here in Peoria County. I'm an active voter and a current resident of Chippewa Estates community, just located outside of Princeville. Chippewa, the Homeowners Association, has given me permission to speak on their behalf. We are asking all members of the Peoria County Board to please vote in favor of this resolution to amend the Livestock Facilities Act. This amendment, if passed, could give county officials and local citizens more ability to make decisions that will impact them directly. You, the board, are the only protection rural communities like Chippewa have against any large commercial animal grower building too close to our homes, too close to Chippewa Lake, which we enjoy and invest in as an association, and too close to the village of Princeville. We support the 1.5 mile restriction the resolution proposes. Please understand that we fully support agriculture in all of its forms, but we believe that these large facilities must be built in responsible locations, just like the one in Duncan. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce Blumenshine. Welcome, Joyce. Welcome back.
Thank you, Chairman Rand and members of the board. Joyce Blumenshine, Heart of Illinois Group Sierra Club. You have a tough issue before you here tonight, and I hope on behalf of the future of Peoria County and the citizens you've heard from Princeville, you vote to support the original resolution. The substitute resolution cuts the heart out of the main goals that are needed to protect the future of our county. I need to ask, what is the Farm Bureau and what are local farmers afraid of if they are not willing to simply allow the adequacy of the water resources to be assessed before a CAFO goes in? What is the Farm Bureau and local agricultural people, what are they afraid of if they don't even allow a public meeting by the county people regarding these issues? So it is very basic and very clear that the rights of the general public for the future of the county are in the original resolution with 4 points. Those have been well thought out. They're basic, they are not onerous, and they are not something that anyone should be afraid of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joyce. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next subject based on the citizen request slips regarding the auditor's budget. And because we're doing kind of good on time here, I'm going to open this up to 3.5 minutes. Emily Prewitt. Did I get that right, Emily? Oh my gosh, I guess. Alan.
Pruitt.
It's P-R-E-W.
I know,
It's
yeah.
like Drew Pruitt. Welcome, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. My name is Emily Pruitt. I'm 29 and I've lived in Peoria County since second grade. I'm here because I'm angry about the county auditor's budget. I don't think that it's right. It prevents the county auditor I elected from serving the role I elected her to serve. I voted for her because I want her to carry out the duties and responsibilities of county auditor. And I voted for her specifically because she will be uncooperative with anyone preventing her from carrying out those duties. The board seems intent on crippling an auditor whose main duties include making sure you're being responsible, and it's a huge red flag. I resent being put in a position of being suspicious, but I feel it's the only way I can react when I see a perfectly qualified, knowledgeable, and transparent elected official being prevented from doing her job. Ms. Thomas has been completely forthright about her desire to serve in her elected role, how she plans to serve, and what's preventing her from doing so. I encourage you to seriously consider fully funding the county auditor's office, and also consider what it will mean for you in coming elections if you don't. We no longer live in a political climate where voters will let you sweep these kinds of actions under the rug. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's your turn, Doug. Come on. Come on up. Welcome. Yes.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak here tonight. My name is Doug Johnson, and I am a Peoria County resident. I'm also an elected Democratic Precinct Committee person in the precinct that has the most Democratic voters in the county. I am also an activist that is involved with a number of different political organizations, and I've been somewhat on a hiatus for a while due to working full-time, being in school full-time, getting married within the last year, and our one-year anniversary is coming up on Sunday. Emily is my wife. And my obligation to helping run an organization of which I'm an elected co-chair. Outside of all of that, every time someone asks me to make a city council meeting or another political event, I have to deal with a lot of guilt about not being able to make it, but not tonight. Nobody even asked me to come here tonight. Now, I respect everybody in this room, and I would like to maintain that respect. Everybody on this board worked very hard to get here, and I recognize that. However, when I saw the county administrator's response to Jessica's plea to have a fully funded budget for the auditor's office, I almost fell out of my chair. I know Jessica, at least to the degree that I supported her candidacy with every ounce of my soul. Not only did she have to win 2 elections in the primary, if you consider the referendum, but she went on to crush the Republican candidate in the general election. I couldn't be more inspired by her tenacity and her drive to bring some semblance of transparency to our local government. And I won't even get into the tactics that were employed against her and some of her supporters, including myself, in that primary. But I was there, and no one person should have to put up with that kind of disrespect and vitriol. The county administrator said Jessica was not qualified to be the county auditor. And if that's all you got, personal attacks and ad hominems, are these the people that our tax dollars are funding and going to? As far as I'm concerned, she is the most qualified candidate to hold this position, at least for as long as I've been alive. Why does the county administrator feel so comfortable and so compelled to lie?
Time out, Doug. Time out. Yeah. So, yellow flag from the ref here, okay? Okay. You may not make any disparaging comments about any member of this body. Excuse me? Okay, sir, I'll come back to you in just a sec. You may not make any disparaging comments about any member of this body during a public meeting, nor may you make any disparaging comments about any employees of our organization.
Okay. Is it fair to say that I believe it was a lie?
Don't even get close, Doug.
Okay. All right.
Now, sir,
Okay.
If you'd like to speak, you'll need to fill out a request, okay? Okay, but in the meantime, we have rules here, and I'll stop the whole meeting if you'd like to talk, because as long as I'm talking and have this microphone, I decide who speaks. That's what all these people elected me to do. Thank you. Doug, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the behavior, I disagree with that behavior. I think we need a fully funded auditor's office. And to me, if that wasn't clear before Monday, then I think it definitely is now. I wish that Mr. Sorrell was held accountable to taxpayers and voters of Peoria County. But I guess we'll have to hold accountable the people who put him in that position, and that means this county board. It shouldn't go unnoticed that the same lines that were used in that news report were the same lines that were coming from that primary election. I feel like we aren't stupid, and some of us know more than we probably want to. But I don't want to go there. I want us to do the right thing, and especially Democrats. I'm just asking to prove to voters that we're transparent, that we are honest, and that we don't play these kinds of games, especially with other Democrats, because we can't handle losing a referendum that we hedged all of our bets on. I think we're better than that, and all eyes are on you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Jane Tyler? Get that right? Tyler? Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. My name is Jane Tyler, and I am 26, born and raised Peorian, 309 forever, yada yada. I really have grown over my years to become a little more hopeful towards my hometown, because, you know, everybody, any kid I knew anyways grew up like, can't wait to leave my hometown and listen to pop punk on the road with my hot girlfriend. I don't know. I've grown hopeful for my city. I see the potential we have, and I want us to get there. And people that help that hope, I would say, are people like Jessica Thomas. She has shown me and many people here tonight even, like, she's here trying to do her job properly, and it's really difficult when she's faced with not just irresponsible journalism, as has been recent, but, you know, like, the coded language that is in the quotes from those articles that we read online. And one of the most unsettling uses of coded language, in my opinion, was Mr. Sorrell's use of the term uncooperative, sorry. And he said that Ms. Thomas is uncooperative. And I feel like, as a political official, we need to carry ourselves a little more mindfully when we speak about what I think is a really important factor in this, the first black woman to be put in this job position. I just feel that that's something that shouldn't go overlooked, and we should be respectful, mindful, and courteous. And that's not how you build bridges. That's not how you build relationships, by throwing out words like this, these backhanded remarks, and implying that she's unqualified and unprepared for her duties. It just feels to me like she's really got the odds stacked against her, and I feel like you guys aren't giving her a chance as the board. So, I don't know. I guess I'm just here to ask that everyone open their minds and try to work with each other and come at each other respectfully instead of the ways that it's been, you know, previously. But thanks for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you very much. Are you kidding me, Walraven? You want to put one in now? You're up. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you very
Anthony
much.
Walraven.
My name's Anthony Walraven. I live in Peoria County. I live in the city of Peoria. I know that the county has or you guys have done a very good job of keeping the budget balanced, of keeping us in the black fiscally. You've done a very good job of operating a county nursing home that provides people with the kind of care that more and more Americans are needing as they live longer, and that you're to be commended for that. And I know that, you know, eliminating some of these elected positions is maybe something that is a way that we can save money. But unfortunately, the state law doesn't let us do that with the auditor's position, and we went to the public and we had a referendum. And in that referendum, the citizens of Peoria County elected to keep their elected auditor. Across the river, they're having this same issue, and that issue has devolved into court fights. That issue has devolved into rancor, and it doesn't have to be that way. I was very I know Jessica. I consider her a very dear friend of mine. It's unfortunate that employees of the county would choose to disparage someone that this county should be holding up as an example of someone who comes from the community, wants to serve the community, and has done nothing but try to do that before she was elected and when she was elected. I am not an expert on what the county auditor's budget should be. I know that there are people that are have much more expertise in that. I do know that the amount of money that has been set aside for the auditor's position in this county is lower than Tazewell, is lower than McLean rather, is lower than Champaign County, is lower than Rock Island County, is lower than any downstate county with more than 5 or 10 people in it. And I wonder why. I don't know why, but I mean, every other county in this state feels the need to fund their auditor's office at a much higher rate than we do. I know that there was some negotiation involved and that budgets are probably the grossest part of your job. It's probably the part that you guys look forward to the least. But to have a lower budget for that position than Tazewell County, which doesn't have the population of Peoria, doesn't have the infrastructure of Peoria, as an average citizen, I don't understand that. I'm not going to, and also I don't, if we have an auditor's position constitutionally to inspect the books. I don't think anyone in the county is stealing money. I don't believe that. But I believe that the reason that the state constitution has the auditor's position as an elected one is because when they wrote the state constitution, they realized that the person who inspects the financials should be someone who is directly answerable to the people. I just think as a rule, I believe that principle should hold true. And I know that there has been Attorney General's opinions that have said that you can't eliminate the auditor's position by just not funding it. $300 as an operating budget is a little odd. Maybe it doesn't have to be $4 million, but $300 for an entire year for an office that's supposed to audit the county of Peoria's books seems a little odd to me as just a layman. So I would hope that you guys can work with the county auditor, and I hope that you guys can come to an agreement that allows her to do her job and allows you to continue being fiscally responsible with the county's money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Good to see you. Jessica Thomas.
Thank you all for your comments. The backlash from the county administration came from me just simply stating the truth. The office has been defunded to a historic level. The latest year that the office was funded at the same level was in 1919. So 100 years ago, the auditor's office had the same operational budget as I do today. With no justification, they cut the auditor's budget from $34,000, almost $35,000 in 2016 to $375. What you guys probably don't know is Scott Sorrell did lie. I do have internal auditing experience over 3 years at a corporate staffing agency in Louisiana. So he did lie. And Scott also lied on all
Jessica.
No, I'm standing up for myself, so you can't stop me.
No, I'm going to shut you down. You're not going to disparage an employee of the government
He
that
disparaged
way.
me on the news, so I'm telling the truth, Andrew.
All right, so I'll recess the meeting if you don't take the chairman's demand to not
to stand up for myself and tell the truth.
You're
okay.
Not,
well,
the rules
I'll read.
are
I'll
not
read
the same rules that you're used to. We don't permit it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And legally, can he do that? Okay. So, I'll redirect. He was misstating the facts. I do have internal auditing experience. He also misstated the facts that all elected officials contacted me. I spoke to many of you guys, and I know many of you guys didn't. Some of you guys contacted me, but some people I contacted, and some of you guys have not contacted me. Is this correct? Okay, so he lied, and that's the fact. And also, what I want to say is that I'm ready to do the job according to the Illinois state law. Before I got sworn in, I had a meeting with the state's attorney. He called a meeting with me, with Andrew, and with Larry. That in that meeting, he told me that his loyalty is with the board and not me. And he also told me that if I wanted to get fairness and to get the law on my side, that I would have to do a lawsuit, pretty much. That's the only protection that I would have. So, and I'm sorry but like, this has been a horrible work situation. The way I've been treated from this chairman and this administrator is completely horrendous. It's appalling. And no one should be treated like that. I'm fighting hard for all the people of Peoria County to get financial transparency. These people, I'm not saying fraud is happening. I'm not saying wasteful spending is happening, but it is. And we have enough money to create, in 2008, they created a finance department to shift duties illegally against the Illinois state statute from the auditor's office to the finance department. And they're refusing to fund my office, but they're funding the finance department at over $400,000. So, and those are my duties. So I'm sorry for getting emotional, but this has been a strategic budgetary attack, which we have Attorney General's opinions that states that what they're doing is illegal. They cannot use their budgetary authority to control the internal controls or limit the internal controls of my office. It was very specific. Mr. Lyons wrote to Roland Burrs in 1991. The laws has not changed since 1991. So I want to tell the board that I hope you guys do vote on this pittance of a budget that you're allowing me, but that's not sufficient. It's not sufficient to get the office to where it should be according to the Illinois state statute. And I will hope that you know that I will be back to ask for more funding. Thank you.
Thank you. We would be back at the regular agenda.
Next, zoning ordinance and resolutions. Item 1, a resolution from your executive committee recommending approval of a forgivable loan agreement with Alignment Peoria in the amount of $75,000 to be appropriated from the fund balance of the Community Development Assistance Program Fund.
Thank you. Any motion to approve? Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Discussion? Mr. Ricker, Mr. Adamson.
I'll go ahead and make some opening comments. So we have reviewed this, and so I'll just be very short. From a standpoint of the Alignment Peoria program, I think I've learned a lot, and I think a lot of our board members have learned a lot about it. I'm not here to pass any judgment on the program. I think the program is probably a very well-run program, and it has a great purpose. My position tonight will be to vote no, and the no position is based on, the county board really doesn't have the position to hand out money, the taxpayers' money, to fund certain non-charitable or non-profitable 501(c) organizations. And so we need to be cautious about how we operate and hand out funds, because if we hand it out for one organization that's very valid, very good, there's hundreds of other organizations in the county of Peoria that have the same needs. So the challenge is, how can we hand out money for one organization that's probably a great, valid organization, and then tell other organizations we do not have the funds to support them? So for that primary logic, I will have to vote no for this. Thank you.
Mr. Adamson, do you have something to say?
Yes. I agree, and I know I spoke last month about, I don't think it's the best for governmental money to go to not-for-profit agencies, and understandably it's a laudable endeavor, particularly with specifically graduation rates, and we know our future is tied to the children, but I think this is better handled by personal, private giving and business giving, and it's not our position to give the people's money to charitable endeavors. And I'm going to vote no as well.
Thank you. Ms. Relaford, then Ms. Pastucha, and then Mr. Dillon.
I had the privilege during our committee meeting, Dr. Karat came in and spoke with our group to kind of share a little bit about, educate a lot of the committee members about Align Peoria. I had a little limited knowledge before that of the program, and through her discussion and through hearing from her team, probably even gained an increased knowledge and appreciation for what they do, and really helped outline the reasons why the program impacts so many different areas of our community, addressing poverty needs, addressing education needs, and really how that is really a spider web and expands to so many different areas that are under need within our community. And I really struggled on this. I guess being a newer member to the board, kind of looking at the roles and responsibilities of county board, what we do with our budget, the decisions that we make, and took some time after that meeting to really dive a little bit further into this and look at the impacts of it. And I'm also going to be voting no tonight, not because of any question regarding Align Peoria or their impact on our community or what they're able to do. Again, nothing against the program itself, but my own mind and struggling with the precedent of what would happen. There's so many different needs within our community for non-for-profits. I come from a healthcare background. I can think of many and several that could also use funding. There's different organizations that I think we all have certain passions for and desires for, and so I struggle with what a yes vote would mean when those organizations also would come under financial pressure and would need our support. So unfortunately, I'm also going to be voting no.
Thank you. Ms. Pastucha.
I will be voting in support of this. I am a diehard Peoria Public Schools person. I grew up in Peoria Public Schools. My kids go to Peoria Public Schools. Align is a program that is for Peoria Public School District kids to get a leg up. And I see this more as an economic development tool. And for all the money that we spend on other things, I feel like this could possibly be the best $75,000 that we spend this year. This is in line with what the sheriff's office is doing with trying to get kids out of this cycle of, going to jail and their parents are in jail. This is giving kids the opportunity to get job training skills and the soft skills that are lacking in our job force today. When I was in Kentucky, I was auditing a facility that makes car parts for auto manufacturers, and I talked to this one of the owners about, a company like yours, what would make you decide to move to a certain location and open up another facility? He said it's the workers. They are looking for a job force, and I talked with him over lunch, and he gave me an article from the Harvard Business Review about the South Carolina area that has boomed over the past 20 years. And what they have is a job force. And I feel like this is crucial to Peoria developing this job force that is worth having companies being attracted to our community. It's going to help, I think, in the long run immensely. So I am voting in support of this.
Thank you. Mr. Dillon.
Thank you, Chairman.
I want to thank you and Scott for bringing this forward to us. And I've had the chance to talk to Steve about this, and I respect your opinion. I've come to believe after the presentation that was given to the board, if we can't, this is a true economic development loan, and that's what this money was intended for. Chairman Rand brought a creative proposal to us, and if we can't choose to invest in Peoria Public Schools, I don't know what this county can choose to invest in. So goes the schools, so goes this area. And Dr. Karat has done a lot, and I want to kind of break the rules here for a second and ask for the privilege of the floor for Marcia to come speak to us and tell us the wonderful things that she's doing to change this community for the better. And I think once you guys hear all that, everybody will understand how this $75,000 loan or forgivable loan, grant, or whatever we want to call it, is the right vote tonight. So,
Jimmy, I don't think you're breaking the rules. You're just asking for privilege
that's
of
the
the
chairman
floor.
for the privilege of the director.
And we're happy to grant it to you. Marcia, welcome.
Thank you,
It's
Chairman.
lovely to see you.
Thank you, and good evening to the board members. It really is an honor to be before you tonight. We're grateful for the consideration, and truly, I think someone says $75,000, and it's a loan. It's really a small investment when you look at the return on investment. In just a short amount of time, we've been able to garner over 168 partnering organizations that are coming to the table to help to be more effective in providing solutions so that Peoria Public Schools can fill some of those gaps. When we look at issues linked to poverty, such as STI rates, homelessness, violence prevention, we can't afford to turn our backs. We can't afford to turn away. And so this really is a new way of working, a way of using metrics and technology and process and structure to really to be very targeted in our efforts. And so I would ask that you would really dig deep in your heart tonight. Think about the children. We can't continue to go the way that we're going. We have national reports that are talking about our schools being the most segregated, this being a horrible climate for children of color. And so when we look at $75,000, again, a forgivable loan, I would hope that you would have that consideration. Alignment Peoria is not eligible for United Way funds. We don't do direct service, but we are convening communities together to solve very complex issues. So tonight, I hope you will dig deep and really think about the children and what we can do to improve our community as a whole, as a collective. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Marcia.
Yes.
And while she's up there, can you just elaborate? Because I think it's important for the board to understand what she said about 170 some community partners. You have partners in the room together that normally don't get into the room to engage, and because they see the skills gap. And it was mentioned, I think, by Mr. Johnson earlier about, or not, sorry, Mr. Johnson, but Sidler, the gentleman after him, about keeping people in Peoria.
Sure.
The only best way to keep people in Peoria and have people that can work for our good employers here is to invest in the future. So
Sure.
she has quite the collaboration of.
Yes, we've been successful. Alliance has had the opportunity to bring people to the table that we haven't done in a long time. So when you're looking at business community, individuals from faith-based groups, from educational institutions, from human service groups, education, to come together, we have over 168 committee members that are coming together to look at issues of literacy. Can you imagine children not being able to read? Some of the issue we found has to do with vision. If you receive a medical card and your glasses are broken, you have to wait a whole nother year to receive glasses. I can go on and go on and go on. And so, again, to be able to bring all of these organizations together to say, what can we do to help, again, to support over 13,000 students. So it's a small ask with a very big, big return. I don't know if you want me to go on, if you had other questions, because I could talk about it all night.
That's good. Sorry to interrupt, Chairman. I just wanted to make sure everybody understands all the partners that we always talk about, what the community can give back. and having other people in the schools. And this is a model, a small investment in Peoria at this time to help the schools, but it's also a workable model that was discussed in the last meeting that might help other school districts here down the road. And the amount of things that people will witness in this, I sat in work-based learning interviews last week, and a student, 16-year-old student with a 1.5 GPA told me that he will be the first person in his family to ever graduate high school. And it took me back for a second to even realize we were talking about high school, but sometimes these schools need a little extra help. And $75,000 out of an economic development fund that a school like Princeville or somebody else can use, because this isn't just an urban issue, this is a rural issue too, and it goes across wide spectrums. So I think we had a wonderful presentation last week, and this is a creative loan, and you have 110% of my support for a loan like this.
Thank you. Mr. Fellon, did you have a question for Ms. Bolden?
No, not for her, but just a comment. I didn't have a question for you, but it was just a comment. It was the fact that recently, in past few years, we've read in the newspaper the ranking of Peoria for minorities, one of the worst places to live as a minority, and that's a terrible thing for economic development within our community. So this is something that was pitted, saying the next school may want to come to us for similar things, but if we can turn around the graduation rates of our high schools in the primary city within our county, it will attract people and maybe change that atmosphere. So I am going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? I appreciate you being here, Marcia. I'll just sort of put the icing on the cake for y'all. Align has experienced a little hiccup, not a burp, but a hiccup in its funding apparatus. The funding has largely been made available by a dozen or 13 private businesses here locally, most of them NFPs, by the way, not-for-profits. And originally when Dr. Karat invited these 13 organizations to participate, and the school district, for a lot of reasons, wants Align to succeed on its own as their partner, governed not by the school board or Dr. Karat, but by the community members on the Align board. They made 3-year commitments, which are starting to run out. So the last of those private funds that are running through Align, I'm asking this board to back them up while they go into their next funding cycle. So because things that get measured get better in the world I work in, Align has a lot of data now to bring to the community, and this year has started paid internships with local employers, where we're taking kids from Manual High School and actually paying them for internships to expose them to the jobs that they see that they might want to be. And it's really a very simple premise when you get your head around it. And there are dozens of things going on, and with 3rd graders and 6th graders visiting City Hall and public television stations and places to expose them to the idea that maybe that's a career I might want to pursue. And it's really an extraordinary effort of volunteers with, I think Align's budget is on the order of $170,000 or $200,000 a year. There's one employee and a franchise fee to the National Align organization. Marcia is that employee, and if she can't make an impression on you, nobody can, and I don't care. You know, you can vote however you want. For me, District 150 is a majority school district. 74% of those children are on free or assisted lunches. The plight of the African American in the city of Peoria is directly tied to their ability to maintain some sort of educational accomplishment to get a job. The #1 tool to fight poverty with is the ability to get a job. This is a program in concept where the community is embracing our children and trying to shift the paradigm and change the outcomes, period. It's not some giveaway, and it sure as heck isn't, you know, some freebie for an NFP. Please vote. No, I'm closing the vote, Dr. Adamson. Please vote.
Twelve ayes, 6 nays.
Thank you.
Item 2, a resolution from your Ways and Means Committee recommending approval of a legislative proposal to amend the Livestock Management Facilities Act.
Motion to approve by Mr. Marin, a second. Mr. Fennel, thank you. Let's see, who wants to take this? Jimmy, go ahead.
I think it's kind of mislabeled at the top as amended by committee. Should just be an amendment number 1, I believe. Is that correct?
It actually ended up being amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2?
Right. So the version that was originally in the packet is not what was approved by committee. The version that's at your tables tonight, and I think there were some extra copies available, is the version that was adopted by committee. That was adopted by the committee.
So the one at the table here with 1 and 2 should be the one amendment that I'm going to introduce. Correct?
He has a further amendment that's the table that says amended by committee. That just has 2 things.
Correct.
The one that came out of committee
still
had 4.
Correct.
So, Chairman, this should be the right ordinance with 1 and 2 on it. I'd like to move to amend.
How do you choose to amend, sir? You want to place it as a document?
Substitute.
Substitute
Okay.
resolution.
All right.
And I can explain afterwards.
All right, and that substitute resolution is at everyone's desks?
It should be say as amended by committee on the top of it.
The one with the little red print, does everybody see that?
Which should be amendment 1 or 2, not as committee. Yeah. Amendment 2.
Okay, is there a second to Mr. Dillon, Mr. Ricker? Mr. Dillon?
Thank you, Chairman. So the resolution as amended to you has basically 2 parts of the last resolution. It still keeps the provision for the Department of Agriculture to notify within 10 days. And it secondly has the provision for a new minimum setback of 1.5 miles. So it dropped, for those of you who were at the Ways and Means Committee last couple weeks ago, it dropped what would have been 2 and 3 and went with 1 and 4. And I think in the explanation, just so not everybody's on Ways and Means, and I know it's back at the board floor, is the Livestock Management Act. We're not changing anything here tonight with that. That is a state law that has state has not allowed the county to have any say in that. So any change to this is just a resolution to go on our legislative agenda to send to the legislators, and anything discussion of this would happen in Springfield. What I do know is that we've been talking about pigs and stuff for 2.5 months now, and one of the joys of this job is that you did get to talk to a lot of nice people on both sides that were very respectful, and you got to listen to their stories. And I've learned more about hogs, just like I've learned more about solar than I ever thought I would ever know. And what I did do was I went to a hog farm. It's only about a year old. Looked at it, and I want to thank Member Windish. She set that up. I got calls from my district. And the one thing that keeps coming up that I think is important for everybody to understand is the number everybody can agree on seems to be 1.5 miles. For the most part, when you talk about it, people understand the respect of the city. It coincides with current laws. When we were talking about it, we started talking about hog units and cattle. 2.5 months ago, I didn't even know what a unit was for an animal. And there's different units for all animals. We're talking about numbers that this county board will not decide. Whether they keep it the same or change it, this is a state issue that has been Department of Ag forever. So we're arguing about an issue around this horseshoe that we have nothing to do with. Now, what we can say is the municipality's rights should be respected, and the notification is because nobody on this board likes to be caught off guard, and we were caught off guard because we didn't know. And we could say, yeah, there's a website, you can go check, but in today's world with email technology, it wouldn't be that hard to send off a quick email saying, hey, there's one, so that a member wouldn't be caught off guard if he has constituents call. So the amendment basically says notify the county and respect the 1.5 mile jurisdiction. That doesn't mean you don't that one couldn't go in the 1.5 miles. It just means it has to respect the zoning authority of the jurisdiction. So it's not a perfect resolution, I don't think, for either side, but I've talked to a lot of board members about it, and I think it's the one thing that we can all come in agreement on that isn't a 9-9 vote or anything. This is the one resolution that comes to an agreement. And if you are in favor of any of the other stuff as a person or whatever, that would be something that you have to call your state legislator about, because ultimately the Livestock Management Act is our representatives at the state that would change it, not this county board. So this is the resolution. It's taken us a while to get here, that I would present to the board, and I would encourage everybody to vote in favor of this one tonight.
I saw Mr. Ricker first, then Mr. Rosenbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Member Dillon, for the comments. This has been a good educational process for myself, and I know many of the board members. And so I'll be short with it, but I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there of what this resolution is or what this legislation action is. So I've had a lot of calls, and I always encourage people, call your board member if you have concerns. But also, I ask as an education, please ask for clarification. I had several people call and had good discussions today that they thought we were going to vote tonight on approving or not approving the facility at Princeville. And I think Mr. Dillon has made that clear. That was out of the scope. We have no authority or control over that here. So again, I don't want to disappoint people. I think from a standpoint, from a county standpoint, we have looked at this. We have brought both parties, both sides of the representation together, the people who have concerns, and we understand that, and we need to represent those people. We also have the ag community. Our farmers are a key business member in our community. We need to respect them. I personally have tried to talk to all parties who would listen and talk. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of education, and I'd ask everyone in this room, you've got your concerns, very fair, but please listen to the other side, because I think I grew up outside. I grew up in Bureau County on a dairy farm, and a hog confinement was put in 1977, a half a mile from my family's farm. In 1977, that facility was a lot different than a facility today that Mr. Dillon witnessed. So we have this fear that this facility is something mean and evil, and in reality, there's a lot of EPA laws, there's a lot of farm laws, a lot of things in there for water, environment, EPA. Again, I didn't know a lot of the details. I've learned a lot. So there's a lot of information, there's a lot of regulations already in place. This 1.5 mile is probably the one that it needs to be reviewed and looked at from a standpoint of these municipalities who have setbacks, already have code in place. So that's one that I do support. I think I would encourage the board members here to see that, and I know I've had discussions with several of the board members on that topic. The other one's notification. I've had some really good spirited discussions with various people about notification. You know, I guess my challenge is, if we can't be transparent and notify, then what are we hiding? What are we afraid of? It's an education process. I'd like to really call out the farm group. You've done a great job at moving from that 1977 farm that I know, and it's still operating next to my family's farm. It's been improved, it's updated. but these new confinements are extremely technical and very well done as far as the odor, the contamination control, all of the things in there from an EPA standpoint. It's probably better regulated than, quite frankly, our landfill that we take pride in trying to manage. So, you know, there's a lot of fear and a lot of misunderstanding. My challenge is everyone, you know, kind of set back a little bit. I know it's concerning when it's out in your neighborhood, but put this in perspective and learn. And I'd ask the farm community to also be open and communicate to your neighbors. If you cannot show up to your local Princeville and go in and sit down and communicate with them that you're planning to put this in, and here's the technical advantages of this facility, then my challenge is you should do that too. So, you know, I'm not giving either side a pass. Get up and speak and be part of your community. Don't wait until the 11th hour and argue. So the transparency, I think, will help in the setback. So with that, I'll get off my soapbox, but you know, I appreciate everyone's input, and as always, I encourage you to keep giving us input. Thank you.
Mr. Rosenbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Board Member Dillon once again for taking the time out of his extremely busy schedule and going up there and visiting it. I want to thank the members of the board for listening to everybody. What I've told many of you, maybe not all of you that's been on the board, I figure if I get 85, maybe 90% what I want, it's a win. And if my colleagues that are on the other side of the issue get the same amount, they've won too. And that's part of what I feel this substitute resolution is. It's not 100% for one side or the other, but it's something that we've compromised on. I've talked with my ag colleagues. Many of them are my friends. Many of them are people I've just met, but have been in the business for years. And to let everybody know, I was a dairy farmer for 30 years, and I own a pollution control facility. So I know all about smells. I grew up with them, and I still do with it. This is a resolution that I can support. I've talked to my ag colleagues. They're willing to support it, and I would appreciate a yes vote on Mr. Dillon's resolution. Thank you.
Ms. Pastusha and Mr. Windish.
So I might be a city girl, but I've spent a fair enough amount of time on farms. My husband's side of the family are all farmers, so we spend a lot of time on large farm with about 500 cows in Mercer County, Illinois. We spend a lot of time up in Wisconsin at a dairy farm. I think they have about 120 cows. So even though I am a city girl, I appreciate the farming community. We all eat. I know where my food comes from. So I want to thank all the farmers who stick it out and work the long hours. I also want to thank everyone who emailed, who's come to a council or the board meeting to speak, or just to be here to listen. Thank you for all the phone calls. Sorry I haven't been able to answer them all. Yes, I want to reiterate that by voting for this, we are not changing the outcome of the facility that is going to Princeville. What we are doing is we are trying to come together to ask that some of the things that we think are wrong with the way things are working right now, they could be better. You know, I want to thank the Prices for coming to the Land Use Committee, because that was our first inkling that anything was even happening. You know, we shouldn't have to find out about a hog facility going in just randomly by chance. So I want to thank everybody on the board as well, because I want to say that I feel like this has been an example of good government. We have not rushed into this. We have all done our homework. We have all worked together. I think we have all come to compromises. I don't think anybody's 100% happy with this, but I just want to commend everyone involved for this, and I am voting yes.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Elsasser. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Matt, you're next then, Mr. Elsasser.
I guess I'm glad I followed everybody. That gives a little less to say, but I want to thank Jimmy for taking the time to go out. But I think most importantly here, this is a little bit of give from everybody, and most importantly, I think it just addresses the problems that we've had. I mean, number one, the distance from town, and then I guess we all want to be informed when Jimmy decides to start a hog farm. So, thank you for everybody's time, and I'd like to support this amendment.
Mr. Elsesser.
Well, I've been on the phone hundreds and hundreds of times the last 3 months, and I do support the 1.5 miles. I've talked to many farmers, and privately, I think only 3 or 4 disagreed with me on this issue, and this resolution tonight is much different than the one a month ago. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that are unhappy because the county control's been removed, the water, and the public hearing. And I still am a big fan of the public hearing because that's just the American way of doing things. But it's not in here. But I honestly do believe that if there's any chance of getting anything passed in Springfield, and that's where it has to be done, I think it is with the one simple resolution of the 1.5 miles, because it's quantitative, you can measure it. It's already part of the jurisdiction for zoning for all these municipalities, that have that. And so I'm really encouraging the people to get behind in Springfield to respect, and I like to use the word respect, the 1.5 miles, because in Peoria County, I did a little rough math. We have about 633 square miles. When you take the river out, you take the city of Peoria and the villages out, I'm going to probably be way off, but I think we have about 500 square miles remaining of open land, with some where there's homes and some where people farm and have their businesses and different things. But, that's a lot of area outside the 1.5 miles. And I do support building in the appropriate locations hog and cattle and chicken facilities in those areas, in that 500 square miles in Peoria. But I do not support within the 1.5 miles. And I think that it's kind of like being a good neighbor, I believe. I think that when you build that close to a town or a municipality, something may or may not happen, and it could be pretty devastating. And so I think it would be good for the agriculture community not to continue to pursue that in those areas. And for the farmers who've grown up there within 1.5 miles, who've raised hogs, cattle, and chickens, I think it's kind of the norm. I don't think anybody really thinks anything about it. And if they were to expand, this resolution recommended to the state actually gives the village board or the city board the option to accept it or to reject it. So it doesn't say you can't do it. So if the village board says, man, these guys have been here a long time, they've been feeding hogs for 70 years, we need to let them build a new building. It does make a difference. And so I do support the 1.5 miles, and I encourage the people to get behind this.
Dr. Adamson.
I'm very happy that the way our state is right now, that we're surrounded by beautiful, fertile land. And so ag is very, very important to the state of Illinois. I also understand from personal experience what a burden at times oversight can be, and governmental oversight, even with the best of intention. The only question I had is in the first resolution, or the first amended resolution, there was a threshold for public hearing, and I don't see a threshold here for notification. Was there any need for that from other people's perspective? Because it seems like it could be a very small number.
We took the threshold parts out because we were discussing animal units. So the ask was this to be notified if a large scale like this was coming to the county, and then respect the 1.5 miles. So there was no hearing trigger or anything else. It left those laws will be changed at the state if they ever change it.
Right, and I understand we're essentially making a suggestion to the state, but there's no threshold for the.
If you file with ag, you would have to be notified.
Yeah, I'll add, if they file with the Livestock Management Act for any of the rules already defined by Livestock Management Act, then we ask to be notified. So it's just following the livestock plan and the act that's already in place. We're not asking it to do anything different, but do one thing is to notify the county that it's within.
Well, I mean,
It has
maybe
nothing to do with
this
animal
is,
units. It's just
but it
when
says
there's a
here
sighting being done.
It sounds like presently there is a threshold and it's 1,000.
Yes. No.
No. No. So there's
no notification.
There's 1,000. So right now there is a threshold in order for the county to receive a notification, and we only get it if it's 1,000 animal units or more. But we're essentially asking to just remove that threshold so that much like the neighbors have to get a notice when it's proposed, when it's filed with ag, that we'd get the same type of notice that the neighbors do. We're just asking to also be notified.
It just seems like a big jump again on the oversight, and I hear everyone saying that they really respect the limit as far as distance.
I was confused with your choice of the term oversight when it really is just triggers a notification.
No, Cheryl Walsh spoke on this, and I thank everyone for coming and speaking, but she was mentioning that there's a lot more oversight now, lots of regulations, and I'm just saying from personal experience, in my field, I see that too. And sometimes, even with the best of intention, it can be a lot of extra overhead work. So, and I was hoping that, that be shared.
Anyone else? In the course of the last couple or 3 months as we've been studying this subject, and I really want to thank everyone who's come to inform us, and I'm sorry we don't have any way to perfectly resolve all of this, but there are these sort of truths that I don't think anybody's sort of framed yet. They've touched it. Ag, I've heard all too frequently in the last few weeks that ag is somehow underappreciated by the county board members, or ag is underappreciated by the urban members of the Peoria County Board. Just in case that thought still exists on anyone who's informing us, let me just read this into the record from the Department of Ag. Marketing of Illinois agricultural commodities generates more than $19 billion annually. Corn accounts for 54% of the total. Soybeans contributes 27%. And the combined marketings of livestock, dairy, and poultry generates 13%. The balance comes from sales of wheat and other crops, including fruits and vegetables. Billions more dollars flow into the state's economy from ag-related industries, such as farm machinery manufacturing, agricultural real estate, and the production and sale of value-added food products. Rural Illinois benefits principally from agricultural production, while agricultural processing and manufacturing strengthen urban economies. So to the north of us, those urban economies that benefit from the production out here in the rural part of the state, that number is on the order of $180 billion of industry related to converting those raw products into something that's processed. I don't think we will underestimate what ag means or does. These aren't my statistics, the Illinois Department of Agriculture, so I'm just going to say they're agricultural friendly statistics. And I wish that we did have some greater oversight responsibility, but I think probably the most interesting thing I've heard in all of this, and Mr. Ricker, you mentioned it a little while ago, was this notion that we have more regulation related to large operations like this than landfills. I sat on the last landfill siting committee here. I assure you, nothing is farther from the truth. That might be something you could look into. It is an extraordinary process to site a landfill in this state, as it should be. So I was picked for that. I didn't volunteer. All right. I'll ask for you to vote on the amendment. Then we'll come back and vote on it as amended. Thank you, Alan. All right.
17 ayes, 1 nay.
Now, as amended, please vote.
Eighteen ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate y'all in the blue shirts. We know who you are.
Item 3, a resolution from your Ways and Means Committee recommending approval of an additional appropriation to the FY 2019 budget in the amount of $68,500 for the Office of the Peoria County Auditor.
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve, and Ms. Parker on the second. Discussion.
So maybe we should wait.
Yes.
Pause for. No. Yeah. No. Yeah, I got it.
If you were listening or watching online, we're just waiting for the room to clear a little bit. All right, Mr. Dillon, just walk back in. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few opening remarks. I want to thank all the folks who showed up tonight to talk on the topic. I want to remind folks that since this is a budget amendment, it does require a supermajority. Let me say a few preliminary things. One of the and this was somewhat brought up in the remarks from some folks from the public who wanted to speak on this. Budgets are some of the hardest things we have to do here because there are a remarkable number of demands on county government on what we need to do. Everything from the nursing home to providing public safety through the sheriff's department, the state's attorney, the courts, our vital records, the public health department. We have the Regional Office of Education. We have the Veterans Assistance Commission. We have lots and lots of things that people want us to do. And quite frankly, they all want more money to do it. And so the individual department heads or elected officials don't get to simply say, this is how much money I need, and then the taxpayers automatically kick it up. Instead, you have this body that has the power of the purse, much like you have at the federal level. Congress has to actually make appropriations. The president can't simply do that, although apparently he can if he declares an emergency. I think it's important to keep that in context, that there are an awful lot of departments and elected officials who have seen their budgets cut as we've tried to make sure that we don't run Peoria County into the same financial situation that the state of Illinois is in, or that even the city of Peoria is in. One of the other things that we have to deal with on this board is that there are limits in how much revenue we can raise and from what sources. And some of the strongest limitations there are on the general fund, which is where we fund the county auditor's budget from. That also funds things like the sheriff's department, county clerk's department. There's an awful lot of other demands on that. And I think it's important to keep in context as we're voting and considering that a county auditor's position is important. There was a referendum. The no votes won by 20 votes out of tens of thousands of cast. But you know what? Just the fact that it's close doesn't mean that it's not valid. And we honored that. And we still have an auditor. We had an election in November. There was a winner. She was sworn in. And she has been participating by coming to committee meetings and making her case. But again, we have to balance that with the folks that elected us, who I don't know many folks that are clamoring to the 18 of us on this board, please raise my taxes a lot more, because we're basically up against the limits on our property tax rate. I wanted to put some things in context too, because there have been a lot of numbers thrown around. One of the things that I just passed out to the committee members was I asked for, okay, let's put our appropriations in context. What are the 2019 adopted budgets for all of the downstate county auditor offices? And you can go through, the board members can look at that. Even without this amendment tonight, the overall budget for the auditor's office was still higher than 4 of those. After this, well, and you can see that the average is approximately $250,000. And if this amendment passes tonight, the budget will be right about that average for all of downstate Illinois. If you go back and look at past budgets, it was lower when Mr. Rotherham was auditor, because he chose to refund part of his salary, which he could do. I did not appreciate or approve of the way he did that, but that did result in a lower budget for his time in office. But if you go back to the last budget year before Mr. Rotherham, that'd be fiscal year 16, The budget for the auditor's office was $234,000 approximately, with 3 full-time equivalencies, including the auditor herself. If this amendment tonight passes, the budget will be approximately $255,000, again with 3 full-time equivalents. So we are restoring and actually going beyond what we did in previous fiscal years for the office. I think it's important to have that context. I think it is, auditing is very important. As the people on this board know, when we put together the referendum that did fail, there were a number of folks on this board that had moved for years to completely eliminate the office, eliminate any sort of independent auditor. And much to the chagrin of some people, I teamed up at least twice with the late Carol Trumpy to defeat that. I'd still be opposed to eliminating the idea of an independent auditor. We put forward the question of whether it should be an appointed but independent, qualified by the same way that we have to do it for the supervisor of assessments or the county highway engineer, and it lost. So we have still an elected auditor, and she made a case to try and increase. When she came to committee, she asked for an increase of approximately $338,000. If we had given her that, you'll notice that her budget then would have been more than twice the average of every other downstate county. And she made it clear in committee that this was just part one, that she wanted to come back and wanted at least another $400,000 on top of that $338,000. The board, though the committee looked at that, and she made her case, and we started off with simply adding 1 FTE. But we looked at the actual request she made and some of the other items, and you know what? We amended the original resolution, so the one that you see in front of you includes some of the additional items that she wanted for operations. I'd also like to point out that a lot of the things that that the public may not realize get picked up elsewhere, things like IT services and computers, the auditor doesn't have to pay for. That gets paid for out of a centralized budget. Insurance doesn't get paid. That gets paid for out of a risk management budget. Retirement doesn't have to get paid. That gets paid for out of a separate IMRF and FICA levy and budget. So there are a lot of things that if you were running a business, you might think would be included in a budget that aren't in any of the individual elected officials' offices, because the general central administration absorbs those through other divisions. So with all that, that kind of gives you some background, but I think we're trying to be both fair to the auditor and fair to the taxpayers and the folks that elected us in balancing those needs, and trying to be reasonable about that. And I think the product that you have before you tonight is the process of that democratic process, and our attempt to be good fiscal stewards. And with that, I'd ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. I'll start on this side of the room. Comments? Dr. Adamson?
So, just a little preface. There was a small group on the board that completely supported keeping the auditor as an elected position, and I think in general everyone agreed that we would let the people decide. I think it's very wise, by the way, and I was very vocal and clear that I felt it was very good that the auditor keep independent from the board, that it keep independent from the executive arm of the county, which is the best as far as safety. They're a stopgap. They're a safety for any type of malfeasance. And again, I would agree with you know, that's the best way to do it. And in corporate America, if someone says, I want to appoint my own auditor, rather than they're at arm's length, it's a potential invitation to a disaster. You know, she is a very smart lady. I've met with Jessica Thomas personally, and she is very smart. She knows what she's doing, and I think she has a very good understanding of what she needs as far as staff to get the job done. So when I look at the numbers, Champaign, McLean, Rock Island, Sangamon, and Winnebago, which are closest to us, the average spend in the auditor's office is $265, and I think that Mr. Mayor is saying that we're up to $255 now with the new appropriation.
If the resolution that came out of Ways and Means passes.
So the one thing, you know, it's not clear though when you look at these numbers is what other part of their overhead might be covered by county admin. And I think this is where we need Jessica Thomas to weigh in to teach us. I think this is my perspective. I would like to hear a little bit more from her perspective what she needs to get the job done and support her office. So I'm going to vote no tonight and hope it goes back to the committee for some more thought. Thank you.
Are you on Ways and Means, Dr. Adamson?
No.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Parker.
I would just like to say to Jessica, my heart goes out to you for the conditions in which you feel you're working in, and I do hope that just overall that all the elected officials and all the other employees in the county will embrace her and try to work more with getting things resolved and allowing her to do what she was elected to do. I do know that money is an issue, and then we do have to be careful. But she's here now, and I think we need to learn how to work with what we have and just make it work, and try not to have any kind of negative spin put on anything that comes out of the county, because we all are trying to do our jobs, and I do believe that. And I know that sometimes things get said that either get misunderstood or were not really done intentionally, but the fact remains that she's got a job to do now because she's elected to do it. So my hope is that we all just collectively come together and help work things out and get things done.
Thank you. Ms. Pastisha.
So I have reached out to Jessica. I've met with her on my own accord. I stopped into her office when she first was elected and sworn into office in December. And we went out to lunch together and to talk about the auditor's office and the finances that she has in her budget. I said this when we were talking about the CAFO's resolution that we just voted on, and I think the key to good government is that you have to be able to give and take. Nobody gets what they want in government. That's just how it works. We all have to make compromises. And I would like to read to you something when I was doing some research about, you know, what do other counties do. I want to thank Alan. I think he put this together. I was looking at other similar sized counties. I didn't do quite as much research as Alan did, but I looked at I looked at McLean County, and I looked at Sangamon County, and those are on here, so I won't go into detail. But Sangamon County's budget, if you look at who they pay salaries to out of the auditor's budget, it is 1 auditor and 2 staff, which is what this resolution will give Jessica in her budget. But I'm going to read something that I found in the McLean County budget report for 2017, and I thought it stated really what I'm feeling about the difference between the requested budget and what we're voting on tonight. It states, management of the government is responsible for establishing and maintaining an internal control structure designed structure designed to ensure that assets of the government are protected from loss, theft, or misuse, and to ensure that adequate accounting data are compiled to allow for preparation of financial statements in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. The internal control structure is designed to provide reasonable but not absolute assurance that these objectives are met. The concept of reasonable assurance recognizes that 1, the cost of a control should not exceed the benefits likely to be derived, and 2, the valuation of the costs and benefits required estimates and judgments by management. So I feel like it's our best judgment that, you know, the amount that we set for the auditor's budget, you know, it can't it can't be more than the benefits that we feel that we are going to achieve by having an auditor. The point of even having an auditor, you know, we have an auditor. The voters decided that. I don't feel like that's even a part of the discussion anymore, personally. What we need to move on to is, what do we need to give the auditor in order for her to do her job? In my research, I feel like what we are going to vote on tonight is going to be adequate. And if it's not, I feel like it is up to Jessica in the future to come to us and say, I need X, Y, Z, and this is why. And, you know, part of our job as board members is to look at all the facts and make a decision. So obviously I'm open to hearing more from her in the future. But as far as tonight goes, I will be voting in favor.
Thank you. Before I go back to Dr. Adams, let me see if anybody else wants to go first. Mr. Ricker.
I'll be very brief. Ditto. Thank you, Kate. Perfectly done.
Dr. Adamson.
So I hear what everyone's saying, and I respect people's input. You know, we voted on giving $75,000, and by the way, this might be rebutted, and I understand, but I will still stand by this. If you look at the language in these two different resolutions, here it says, if you listen about the auditor, so I'm going to shorten a little bit, but the committee has evaluated the auditor's request for additional funds. It has also weighed that request against the financial condition of the general fund, its reserves, the board's financial policies for its reserves based on GAAP and GFOA guidance, and other economic factors such as a declining EIV. It's kind of negative. If you look at the $75,000 we granted to a laudable organization, it just says, whereas the County of Peoria is positioned and capable. And I think the one thing is, the auditor's office is state mandate. The other is not.
Thank you. We're not relitigating the previous item for sure, but the source of this funding for Align Peoria has a very narrow use, and it cannot be used to fund the auditor. Mr. Mayor?
Well, I was going to make that point. It's a loan. It's also a one-time thing. I think it was important in the resolution that we sort of explain what I tried to lay out in perhaps too long-winded a way, and explain that we have to balance the benefits and the overall fiscal situation of the county. I also wanted to make it clear that folks from the public may not realize this, but literally no bill can get paid unless it goes through the county auditor's office. That's never changed. All the invoices have to go through her before a check can get cut. She has access through the Penimation system to literally all the finances, all the debits and credits, everything that's being purchased, our property list, etc. And I think that's important, because if folks feel like somehow she doesn't have access, the county board has not cut off any access to her. She still has access to the full finance system. She has, and literally no bill can get paid without her approval. And second, I know there's a lot of talk about transparency. One of the things that not her immediate, but her prior predecessor, Miss Van Winkle, worked on, got up on board, that I had encouraged and helped her with, was putting the checkbook online. So while the public doesn't have the same exact level of detail, like people's social security numbers and so on, everything that's in Penimation, the public can literally see all the payments that the county makes, again, only after the auditor has reviewed and approved them. So the auditor still has a function in and still has the ability to, if she wants to deny a request for payment from someone, from an agency or another elected official, because she thinks that it is waste, fraud, or abuse, that's still very much within her power. Not taking that away, never, and that's never been proposed. And I think we have a fair resolution on the floor, and I'd ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Adamson, earlier you said that you, amongst a small group of the others, had not favored the ballot, the referendum for...
I favored an elected auditor, and I agreed that we would let the people decide. So that was why I voted for the referendum, but I definitely
I wanted to make sure that everyone in this room knows that you voted to put it on the ballot with 16 of us.
To let the people decide.
Okay. I want to make sure that's clear. All right. Hearing no one else, please vote. Oh, Mr. Renaud, please don't vote.
I just wanted to jump in real quick because I kind of got the tone that you feel voting for this is a negative thing, and I don't see it as a negative thing at all to start getting Jessica some help. I think pushing it back to committee and asking for more money is just going to delay the process of her hiring somebody. So I'm voting yes for this because I want to help her at least get started.
Well said. Please vote.
Seventeen ayes, 1 nay. Item 4, a resolution from your Infrastructure Committee recommending approval of a proposal from Midwest Engineering Associates Incorporated, Peoria, Illinois, for engineering services related to the air handling unit control system upgrade at the Peoria County Jail in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Mr. Salzer on the motion to approve, and a second from Mr. Robinson. Mr. Salzer.
Mr. Chairman, we had a special meeting tonight to look at the jail situation, and maybe many of you do not know that this jail is nearly 35 years of age, and I'm sure our sheriff, Mr. Asbill, is going to see many, many other things wearing out. Now, these air handler units are 35 years of age. And Midwest Engineering is going to do us a service, and this is a rollover, this $25,000 from 2018. I almost said 1918, but 2018, and it is all that we will have to pay for this to be done. And Midwest Engineering has been a good engineering firm for us that we have used in the past, and our committee voted unanimously to support this. I should say those in attendance.
Thank you. Ms. Bastucia?
Something else I'd like to let other board members know is I have requested that any projects like this are reviewed to see if there's any Ameren incentive money. For anybody who's not aware of the Ameren Act on Energy program, just recently, I believe it was 2018, for the first time, municipal and other governmental entities were allowed to utilize this money. it doesn't come from taxpayers. It comes from the electricity bill. So every time you pay your electricity bill, a little portion of that goes into the Ameren Act on Energy pot. So it's just sitting there, and it's, if you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, you're not getting any benefit out of it. So I was assured that this project was reviewed, and I want to thank all of the employees at the county for doing that. And so it's going to mean that they use some sort of calculation, and they determine, based on how much money you're going to save with a project like this, particularly the variable frequency drives and the controls that are going to be put in place. They figure out how much energy you're going to be able to save, and they give you a rebate after that project is done. So I want to commend the employees for the county for putting that on your radar. So I think that's going to be, I can't wait to see how much we get. So thanks.
Thank you, Kate. Mr. Ricker says everybody brings a little something to these meetings, and that's, I think, exactly what he's referring to. Who else did I see a hand for? Did I see a hand here? Okay, so item 4, any other comments? Please vote.
Eighteen ayes, 0 nays. Item 5, executive session, personnel matters.
Oh, yeah, about that. Let's go to miscellaneous first. Who's got anything for miscellaneous? Jennifer, we usually start on this side of the room. No bake sale in the neighborhood, no Girl Scout thing to fund? Okay. Mr. Robinson.
I just wanted to thank everybody who has helped me since we've had Bethel Baptist, and our fundraiser, which had to be rescheduled because of the cold winter we had, is now scheduled for June the 15th. I want to thank everybody who's helped out, got tickets, and there are still tickets available. So see me after the meeting.
Thank you, Barry. Ms. Williams and then Mr. Rosenbaum.
I have 2 events on May 22nd. It's a Wednesday evening at the Eagles Club. We are going to be meeting. Sheriff Asbell has agreed to be on hand because we have some neighborhood concerns down in my area, so he's going to come and talk to the residents. So that's Wednesday, May 22nd, 6 p.m. at the Eagles Club, which is down on East Lane in Peoria. Also, Saturday, May 11th, from 9 to 12 is the recycling event, or was recycling fair, and it looks like it's sponsored by Senator Chuck Weaver. It's going to be held at Kusaski Recycling, 2022 West Town Line Road, Peoria. And there's flyers available.
Busy. Thank you very much. Mr. Rosenbaum. Compost is ready for sale. Next.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Salzer and his committee and our county engineer, Amy. The lights are in at the bottom of Cameron Lane in 24. The wait may be a little bit longer than what I'd like, but it's a much safer crossing it without getting hit. And thank you for helping get that project done.
Appreciate it. Mr. Dillon, really?
I'll be short. A couple real quick things is I just want to thank all the board members on here. I know we've talked quite a bit over the last few weeks and got to see different points of view and different perspectives and try to broaden our thoughts on a lot of things. And I appreciate Mr. Windish driving me out into the middle of nowhere to witness some things. So I appreciate it, Matt. And lastly, just want to say welcome, Jennifer. You'll really find that this board is some of the finest people that you'll ever get a chance to serve with. Even when you have difference of opinions, we can still respect each other and go out and have lunch and discuss issues. So it's never really seen the partisanship in here, but it's a welcome addition. Everybody I've seen here has freely talked to you, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. So congratulations, and just wait till we have a bunch of land use resolutions, and then the meeting will get even longer. So appreciate it.
Mr. Saul, I saw Mr. Watkins first. and then Mr. Salzer. Mr. Watkins.
Seniority. Junior, you're being kind to us older people. All right. Now, over the course of your service, you people have been approving the adoption of roads. I don't know how many of you are aware of the fact that we adopted a road, we, the county board, and we have not been out there lately to clean that. I think it is Mossville Road. It's in district number 14, and he didn't show up the last time when we cleaned it up. Well, you were farming, I
was
know.
planting corn.
Oh yeah, that's minor. But anyway, Jim, you probably Rachel, were you on the board yet? Jim, you were on the board. Okay, Jim's the last one. Now we're absent some people that did some awesome work, like Bob Baeto and Tommy O'Neill. Those guys, they got down, into the ditch like and so forth.
Bob told a few stories.
Yeah. But anyway, I see a lot younger people, and we're going to need your help, because one of these days at our committee meeting on infrastructure, we're going to say we're going to have a Saturday sometime probably in June, so don't plan anything for some Saturday in June, because you might have to come and help us clean up Mossville Road. But we will go out there, because it's been quite a while. And if we expect other people to help us clean up roads, we got to clean up ours as well. Another thing is, last Monday, I didn't get a big eye opener, but I got a lot of information, and I know Steve Riker and Sharon Williams and I spent over 3 hours up at Bradley at a subcommittee meeting, infrastructure, brought in by Senator Kaler, and I thanked him. He got Andy Menard to bring in that subcommittee, and they talked about infrastructure in the state of Illinois. And when you said you were going to help turn it around, well, one way we can help get it turned around is get this capital project adopted in our state. It was unbelievable how many people came and wanted things from the state. Three people in the area of transportation, our Tri-County guy, and I forget who it was that was the city manager, I think maybe over in, it wasn't the city manager, but it was somebody from Pekin, as well as the lady from Fulton County. They each wanted one project, and it amounted to like almost $1 billion. Now, that's just one group. And I know Amy and our city manager here for Peoria, they talked about some things. Everybody's got some project out there that they want. They're not going to be able to do it all. But one thing that the committee stressed to us is that we're the ones that have basically got to come up with a way to fund all these projects. And it's going to take us all. Those people that are going to vote against the capital projects bill, some of those on that committee stressed that their area shouldn't get any of these projects.
Mr. Dillon wanted to interrupt you. Is that okay, Junior?
No.
Okay, go, man.
You got a special guest over there from City Council.
I can't wait to talk about how she made it the whole meeting, which means next time I go over to her chamber, I got to make the whole meeting. Nice to have you here, Councilwoman from the 1st District and a good friend of mine. Well, thank you for being here. It's sausage bacon, right? Jimmy, and then Mr. Elsasser.
I've forgotten the first part I meant to mention, since a lot of you have sat through solar for quite some time. The lottery was on Wednesday, and I had seen the email, and thanks to staff, they broke it down even easier for us to So Jennifer, we have awesome land use staff with Andrew and Kathy and the team. So for those that members, when we talk about transparency and knowing, the Hollick Township, Route 40 and between Route 40 and Route 90 on Lakeshore Drive, one of those 20-acre sites was approved, and the second one was waitlisted. So that's Hollick Township, and then the other one is Hollis Township near RP Lumber, south side of Route 24 between Cameron Lane and Powell Lane. That was approved. All the other projects were waitlisted. There was only 30-some projects approved, and out of the 450, the rest are waitlisted. There was 3 groups, and there's the group A was actually the business ones. So there was a ton of those in Peoria area, like this Park District had a lot of their buildings that won awards, or not awards, but won an award to get approval. So you're going to see a bunch of the smaller ones. Just in this first batch, you're not going to see a ton of the Peoria ones that were in here. So these will go, and if they approve it, and if they don't take that, then it goes to the next person. But we have no idea when the next lottery system would happen.
Thank you, Jimmy. Mr. Fennell?
I wanted to let the board members know that the third and final flooded property that was going to be demolished along the river has been, all 3 were done. So it looks very nice what they did.
Thank you. Mr. Elsasser?
Did you say that Councilwoman Moore had to bring her dinner and her breakfast?
She's used to some marathon sessions over there.
But anyway, I did want to thank Mr. Dillon for coming out into the middle of nowhere in my county board district.
Back to Steve then. You finishing the thank you?
No,
You've
I
got
was just
more?
thanking Mr. Dillon for coming out into to the middle of nowhere.
Well, he wants to ride in your combine when you harvest in October.
And actually, as the standing joke is, and meeting with my cousins, since I'm related to everybody at their hog farm.
Mr. Ricker?
I'd like to thank Phil for bringing up I think a very important topic here was the Infrastructure Transportation Subcommittee that met on Monday. And one of the things, and I might even ask Amy to comment on it, but one of the things that I think was Senator Martinez, he's the senator for Sandoval, thank you. Marty Sandoval. Yeah. One of the things he made very clear to everybody who came up to talk was one thing isn't very important to him and to the committee is if you do not have a diversity plan and you do not have some level of diversity compliance with suppliers, you might not get any money allocated from the capital project. He was very clear. Amy did a great job answering, but he asked, and Denise, you were there, you got to ask that question, but I think as a county, we need to probably maybe, I don't know which subcommittee committee needs to look at that, but we need to look at what is our diversity plan, how are we in compliant? Because if they put that restriction on and we get no money because we don't meet and we don't have an effective plan, we don't meet it, shame on us. So I want to put that on the table for all of us. So, apologize for kind of pointing it out, but it was I felt a very critical point that was made. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Very quickly, we actually used essentially model plans when we built the nursing home and the Riverfront Museum for minority participation in both ours and contractors. And we can talk more offline about it, or you can get some more info. But we've done a good job of it, and I think we'll be able to do it again. Yeah, no, we do. We do. It's
the committee to speak with is Rachel's committee, and Scott can show you the progress we've made in that area. Thank you for that point. I put something on your desk tonight, and I see that we still have Mr. Oh, did we lose Mr. Kiergaard? Darn it. I want to ask Mr. Kiergaard. Good. I'll give you my copy before you go. Before we go into executive session, I asked Scott to sort of give us a look at where this body has been since 2008. And the reason we chose 2008 is because that's the year Mr. Harding and I were first elected to this body. That's right. And then on the back side of the graphs are some powerfully interesting data points that are irrefutable. But that's because we have an accounting team that keeps track of this stuff. So, Scott, would you just, in a nutshell, describe what these graphs tell us for the record? And I think it may just, it's not an exclamation point, it just puts a period, I think, on the end of tonight's discussions.
Happy to, Mr. Chairman. So there's, it's a one sheet, two-sided document. One side has two charts. The top one should look very familiar to you board members. It's in the budget document. We've used it for the last couple years. It's a timeline of the budgeted full-time positions for all funds. It does track back from 2008 to the present. The high point in terms of the number of employees that you budgeted for in the annual appropriations was in 2009, when we had 1,029 budgeted positions approved. The budget you adopted last fall for the current fiscal year had 823 positions budgeted. That's a 20% decrease in the size of our employment since 2008. It also notes across the entire operation and the entire government that we routinely operate with approximately 80 vacant positions. And as I've said in budget addresses prior, the overwhelming majority of those positions have historically been in the nursing home and would assume full capacity of the 214 licensed beds that we have at Headington Oaks. The chart on the bottom of the page just breaks out over the same time period, just the general fund. And you can see our high water mark in the general fund was also 2009. That was 502 budgeted positions. This year, we're delivering services from general fund departments with 419 budgeted positions. That's a 16% decrease since the Great Recession. On the flip side, our numbers that have been taken from either your audited financial statements or your adopted budget documents. Again, they show in the left column 2008. First is the revenue budget, and that would have been $43.1 million is what you adopted. The actual revenues received in 2008 were $45.56 million. Your adopted appropriation in the general fund that year was $44.6 million. The actual expense was $55.46 million. Comparatively, in fiscal year 2018, the revenue budget you adopted called for $42.4 million. We actually received just under $41.5 million. So to compare adopted revenue budget to adopted revenue budget over that 10-year period, there was a 1.7% decrease over that time. And in terms of revenues actually received, there was an 8.9% decrease in revenues. The adopted spending authority or appropriation on the expenditure side last year was $42.1 million. Our actual expenses, which is 41.53. Those two numbers, from a budgeting standpoint, the general fund is 5.6% smaller from an adopted budget to an adopted budget perspective. Actual expenses, it's actually 25.1% smaller. And then lastly, we took the 2008 numbers and using the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI calculator on their website, we took the actual revenues from 2008 and the actual expenditures from 2008 and adjusted them to $2018 $2018. So basically an inflation adjustment, and the $45.5 million in revenue in 2008 in 2018 dollars is $54.4 million. The $55.46 million of actual expense in 2008 in 2018 dollars is actually $66.2 almost 29 million. So from a revenue standpoint, when you adjust for inflation, the general fund is 23.8% smaller than it was a decade ago, and the expenditures are 37.3% smaller than it was a decade ago.
Thank you. That's a tough reality. And as I stare at our budget chairman, Mr. Fennell, I also want to note that we were elected a few months apart. So glad to be on the ride with you. Can I get a motion to go into executive session for purposes of executive evaluation? Personnel evaluation. Mr. Fennell on the yes for personnel. Personnel. Sorry. Where'd I get the second from? Mr. Renault. Thank you. Please vote. Thanks, Alan. After executive session, we will adjourn to this room where we could properly adjourn the meeting.
17 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.